really nice crowd here today, which we really enjoy. And at this time, I'd like to call the meeting of the Madison County Fiscal Court to order. Kenny?
Master King?
Here.
Master Combs?
Yes. Here.
Master Barger, how's that?
Here.
Master Hughes?
Here.
Master Combs?
Yes.
Judge Clark?
Here. You all have had a chance to look at the minutes of the last meeting. If there are no changes or discussion, a motion will be in order to approve those as they're submitted in your packets.
So moved.
Master King?
Yes.
Master Barger?
Yes.
Master Hughes?
Yes.
Master Combs?
Yes.
Judge Clark?
Yes. Treasurer's report, Glenna gave that at our last meeting, so we'll have that at our next meeting. And before we go into order of business, I would like the court's permission to amend the agenda. First, Jimmy, I'm going to take the blame. Jimmy Cornelison had talked to me on behalf of the EMS board about an appointment that they really need to fill, and I neglected to put it on the agenda, so I would like to add that. And secondly, amending, it looks like we have a larger contingency than I thought representing the bonding authority for First Christian Church. So I'd like to move them up from 10th to 2nd so they don't have to stay a little bit too long. I'm sure they're all busy and they've got a lot of things to do this morning. So if anybody have any problem with any of that? Okay, we're going to amend it. So first on the agenda is ambulance board appointment. And Jimmy's here. Jimmy, I think, Jimmy, you want to come up? And the reason we kind of moved this around was because Glenn Burkett was here today on behalf of the church, and we just thought, well, he's here, and Greg, the court likes to, Glenn, put a face to a position, what you might say, and ask a few questions and just get a little background on you. And it just kind of worked out because I saw you last night, I knew you were going to be here today anyway. So, Jimmy, you want to say a few words?
Absolutely. We're replacing a board member, Gary Vinsel, who retired a couple of months ago, Carlos, something like that. And I've been in communications with the judge. I go to church with Dr. Burkett, and I one morning just talked to him about that. And of course, his answer to me was he didn't know anything about the ambulance service. And I said, well, nobody does until they get involved. And it's no different from really being a deputy jailer, a deputy sheriff, or anything else if you don't have any experience, but we would go from there. So I'll let Dr. Burkett tell you a little bit about himself. He is from here, a big supporter of our church, which you'll hear from later, but we'd like to make this recommendation. I had talked to our board and to Judge Clark about that. Dr. Burkett.
I was born in Illinois, grew up in Tucson, Arizona, came to seminary at Lexington Theological Seminary in 1964, where I was then assigned to White Oak Pond Church as my student pastorate. In that church, met my now wife of 44 years, Jane Norris, and I always said she didn't care where we traveled around the world as long as we were back in central Kentucky by sunset. And as far away as she got me in these 44 years was Louisville for 5 years, and then Frankfurt. So we always knew that we would come back to Madison County. I started out then upon graduation at Berea and was there for 7.5 years at the church there. We're fortunate in that Jane and her sister inherited a family farm on Barnes Mill Road, and it's been the family for 217 years. So we built a retirement house there and been back here about 8 or 9 years and love the community.
Open it up. Greg, any questions for?
I think Billy the one be
Billy?
doing all the quick.
Anybody have any?
No, I'm just kidding. We just like putting face with the name, and then plus also recognizing as we all know that the burden of the people with taxes is, as we always want to have conservative people that looks for the values of the people more than just the big broad picture. So we just asked you be very conservative with your vote on any increases in the taxes.
It's a unique idea for me to have any influence on that, but I am looking forward to getting involved.
It's good to have you.
Yeah, Roger?
I appreciate your willingness to serve, because it's on all these boards, and everyone knows it's difficult to find high high quality, high caliber people to serve on these boards, because you know, you're not making any money.
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing it as community service, and it's very commendable, and I'm just thankful for all these folks that serve on the board. Appreciate your willingness.
Thank you. Well, I was surprised when Jimmy asked me, but I trust him completely, so if he thinks I have something to offer, I want to try.
Okay, no further questions. Motion would be in order to appoint Mr. Glenn Burkett as EMS Board Director.
So moved. Second.
Master King,
Yes.
Master Barger,
Yes.
Master Hughes,
Yes.
Master Combs.
Yes.
Yes. Jimmy, thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
Welcome aboard.
And Glenn, you can stay up there if you'd like. Next on the agenda is the Madison County Bonding Authority. I'll bring everybody up to date a little bit with this. We've done this several times. Through the state KRS, every municipality, whether county or city, has a maximum of $10 million in bonding authority each year. You get that on a yearly basis. A lot of people don't use it, a lot of people do. And what this really is, it allows the banks to sell the bonds tax-free. So whoever uses this, it's how county government and city governments get a lot of discounts and are able to do a lot of projects. We've done projects with Eastern. McCready Manor was the first one we did years and years ago when they were about to go under because of the rates they were paying. So it's something that we're able to do. We don't have any projected bonding issues coming up in the next year or two. And there's no liability to the county. And I know one time we did it, a lot of people really took it the wrong way. They misunderstood, and it looked like the county was spending taxpayers' money for these particular projects, but that's not true. All we're doing is we allow nonprofit organizations to use our bonding authority, and in turn they can advertise or go to the banks, and then the banks bid on these at tax-free, and they like those. So again, it's no liability to the county. It's just something that we're able to help different organizations do. Glenn came to me and talked about the plans, what they're doing, and I think it's a beautiful upgrade to Madison County, Richmond. That's what I think we looked at. I think they've got some photos today to show everybody, but and I'm going to let them talk about what they want to do and why they want to do it. But I think it's a great project, and you know, we're glad that we have the opportunity to help in these kind of situations. And it's no liability to the court. It's no liability to the taxpayers. It's totally the bank's responsibility. If something did happen, the bank would be responsible, the one that buys the bonds. So at this time, Glenn, who would you like to?
Charles Musson from Chuck Clark.
Hello, Charles. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to
sir.
see you.
A number of years. I'm a lot older looking now. You're still the same looking guy you were.
I don't know.
It's in the bottle.
My name is Charles Musson. I am a municipal bond counsel with Reuben and Hayes in Louisville, Kentucky, and here representing the First Christian Church of Richmond, who has a proposed project.
Charles, if you don't mind, come around that way. That way we can get you on the TV so people can understand what we're doing.
Representing First Christian Church in a proposed community facility building where a lot of the outreach programs of the church is undertaken. Various community educational, recreational, cultural, self-help type programs that the church undertakes is done in their community facility building. And that building that presently is on West Main Street is showing a little age, and the church is proposing to take that down and build a new community facility building. And Dr. Burkett's going to explain that in just a second. With me today from the church is Dr. Betsy Garrick, John Davidson, Ron Kaufman, Richie Cobb, and of course Glenn Burkett. So, and my partner Christian Juckett is here from Louisville as well to answer any questions. Judge Clark, you made my job easy. You're going to put me and Mark Robbins out of business because you explained the law so well. But we're here today to ask the county to participate in this process. And it's what is commonly referred to as a conduit issuer. You all will issue bonds, and on behalf of the First Christian Church, it allows for the bonds to bear a tax-exempt interest rate, which means a lower cost on the overall project. As Judge Clark stated, there is absolutely no financial liability of the county to pay back these bonds. If the project were to go under, that is the responsibility of the First Christian Church, and the bondholders know that and cannot come back to the county and ask for any assistance in any paybacks. The one thing we are asking the county to do is each calendar year, every municipality in the country has the ability to issue what is called $10 million of bank-eligible or bank-qualified bonds. And what that means are these are bonds that can be bought by banks at a significantly attractive rate. They do not have to be publicly sold. They can be sold directly to the banks. Madison County has the ability to issue up to $10 million of these bank-eligible bonds each year. My understanding is the county is not planning on doing any financing of its own this year, so they're really not giving any of this up. There is no carry forward. The $10 million expires at the end of this year, and you get another $10 million allocation next year. There is some talk in Congress right now of raising that $10 million limit up to $30 million, but right now it's not. It's in some proposed legislation, but it's not passed Congress. Again, I just want to state there is no financial liability to the county. It is a total responsibility of the First Christian Church to pay back these bonds. We're here today to ask the county to do what's called an inducement resolution, basically saying, to go on the record saying, yes, we support the idea and the project. At some point later on down the road, when we actually find who is going to be purchasing the bonds, we will come back to the county and ask you to approve a bond resolution and all the documentation that goes along with it. So at this point in time, I'd like to call on Dr. Burkett, who will kind of explain the overall project. I think they have some renderings that might be helpful for the court to understand.
And before we get started, let me just ask, and I don't think it's a problem, but when I talked to you and John, we talked, and then in turn I talked to all the magistrates, and we discussed $2 million, and I'm looking at the resolution, and it's $3 million.
Yes, and
I just want to clarify that to the court, because I don't want them to think that I didn't tell them exactly what we talked
Yes,
about.
Thank you, Your Honor. We put down $3 million because we're not sure exactly what the total cost of the project is. We think it's going to be about $2.6 million. The church has actually already raised about $600,000. We just wanted a fudge factor in there in case they had to seek additional funding. But I think, as Dr. Burkett will say, he will tell you we're anticipating a $2 million or less bond issue.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that.
And you're just approving it up to that amount tonight or today. When we actually come back with the bond resolution, we'll have that set amount.
Okay. Thanks, Charles.
yes, we think that the $2 million has the cushion in it that we might need. Thank you very much for considering this bond proposal. It'll make an extremely significant difference to the life of our congregation, and we believe to our community. About 3 years ago, our congregation decided that it was time for us to look at our vision and mission statements and attempt to see what it is that we are really to be about. Interestingly enough, we got a lot of feedback from our members, and it was pretty much independent feedback as to what they thought our church should be about and how we should accomplish our work. And so we came up with new vision and mission statements, and these are just a few of the phrases that got into that. They're short statements anyway, but our mission and vision is to embrace the community, being open to all, be a leader of positive change in our community, improve lives, be a hub for all in the community who are working for helping people. So we came up with a vision and mission that was not perhaps typical for churches, but we wanted to continue our ministry of reaching out into the community and being a positive change. So that's why we think that this is an appropriate thing to do. We are proposing building a new building, and we'll show you a couple of renderings of that in just a moment. And it has a lot of community space in it. We'll show you a two-story, 2,000 square foot loggia, which would be great for recitals, concerts, receptions for the community, meetings, all sorts of things. We'll show you a new fellowship hall, which is about 3,700 square feet, that will seat about 500 people in rows, and will be a place for receptions or whatever needs might be presented within our community. When you combine the new fellowship hall with the existing fellowship hall, and they will be combined, you could probably get 700 people easily in there. So what we're attempting to do is to be another venue in Madison County for people in the community to meet and have receptions or weddings or whatever. We want to be available to the community. Perhaps best now if you'll just show a couple of those This is the exterior that we're proposing on Main Street. I did a little research on the style of our present sanctuary, which we're leaving, and basically it comes out something like a new modern Romanesque revival. And so we've had architects try to pattern some of the same lines so it'll be an attractive addition to the downtown corridor here in Richmond. These arches that are on the side of the building are mirrored here. This is 2 stories. You'll see an inside shot of that. There's a 2-story atrium in here that will connect the 2 buildings. This is the loggia, which is 2,000 square feet, which would be great for rack recitals or whatever. And it'll also be the entrance from our porte cochere into the atrium and then the sanctuary. One of our primary goals was accessibility. Our current education building has so many steps you wouldn't believe it. I went through our entire building one day and we have 187 steps. That's not counting going up to the bell tower. And that's just making it very difficult. So the lower level, which has the fellowship halls, and the upper level, which has the sanctuary and the loggia, the offices, all are without steps. And of course, we're putting an elevator for those who can't do steps from one level to the other. The back is easily accessed with no steps. When you get out of your car, you can go directly. Even the curbs will be sloped so you can go into the lower level entrance or into Fellowship Hall. Ed Worley is our construction manager, and our architects are Integrity Architecture from Lexington, which is doing the Yorick project and the new sign and things like that over Lancaster Avenue. This is our grand hall, we're calling it right now. Someone said, well, aren't those chairs going to get awful messy on Wednesday night potlucks? Those are rented for a reception and just an architectural rendering. But you'll show that we're trying to make it a very beautiful, attractive place in which the community can gather.
Judge, I think, is there any questions that you or members of the fiscal court or Mr. Robinson
I
have?
think one thing we really need to make clear, because we have representatives from the papers, is, well, you're looking at adding all this space and bringing this many more people in, you might explain where they're going to park.
Yes, well, thank you. I went to the surveyors the other day, and they said we're losing 16 parking spots. And I said, oh, no, we can't lose any parking spots. And well, actually what we're doing is, the neatest thing has happened is that through some local suppliers, what we thought we were going to lose back in here because it was going to have to be a detention pond, we now, working with Robbie Robertson and a new system that's being developed, is there's a series of large rubber plastic tubes that we're going to be burying 8 feet down into the soil, and it'll be right here, and this will be the low spot in our parking lot, so all the water will drain into this, and then it's this detention system that gradually lowers the water into the soil or the subsoil, which then allows for us, and so where we thought we were losing 16, we're actually, and this is not accurate, we have a better rendering of that now, we're actually gaining about 25 parking spaces.
Okay. That's good. Thanks, John. Any questions?
How many members do you have at your church, if I may ask?
About 450 in membership. Attendance on a Sunday morning, about 250.
So, I mean, to me, it's a great project for downtown Richmond, it's a great project for the church, it's a great project for the residents of Madison County, because it will be available to anybody that would like to use it.
Judge, are these bonds, aren't they similar to the ones we do for the school?
Not really.
It doesn't come out of the same pot, does it?
Charles, these were set up a long time ago for municipalities, and they're set up where most bonds, Larry, you have to auction, you have to sell them and give everybody the opportunity to buy them, you know, and a lot of people like to buy tax-free bonds, people out there, so they don't have to pay tax on the profits. But these are set up to where the counties or the cities or any individual, like if we do something for McCready Manor or First Christian, they have the opportunity to go directly to the banks and let the banks bid on them, and they can be sold directly to the banks.
A number of these types of bonds that you commonly refer to as industrial building revenue bonds now. Kind of interesting, you don't think of a community facility being called an industrial facility, but under state law, that's actually what they're called. The Richmond and Madison County and Berea, for example, all have issued bonds to benefit certain things. AFG Industries out in the industrial park, Creedy Manor, Telford Community Center, Patty Clay Hospital, all those have utilized the same type of bonding issues as what's being proposed today. And none of those bond issues have ever been backed up by either any of the cities or the counties in Madison County.
I don't think any of them has ever been in default.
I wish I could tell you that there's never been a bond issue on default, but I can't. Most of them have, I don't think any down here have ever gone to default, but I remember. We've been involved in a bunch of those.
I would say,
Another thing we might want to add, that we are currently a designated Red Cross.
Yes, thank you.
Shelter, and this will be a steel frame building and will continue with being available as a Red Cross shelter.
yes, thank you very much for remembering that. Our people are very excited about this. We started a campaign about 15 months ago to raise pledges, 3-year pledges. We didn't have a diagram. We didn't even have a list of things we wanted to include. We raised in pledges about $840,000. In the first year, we've taken in about $600,000. And so our people are very excited about this.
Okay, no further questions? Roger?
Just like to make some comments. You have to excuse my voice, I'm a little hoarse. Been this way for about a week. Have nothing against any church. I don't belong to this church, but know a lot of people in it. My former pastor at First Baptist very seldom started a sermon without praying for all the churches in the community. And that's just the way he started his sermon. And he made me a firm believer in praying for my churches and my community. I want them all to do good. I have a grave concern over, I don't think we've ever done this for a church, specifically for a church, have we? Mm-hmm. And that concerns me. I worry about down the road that we could get in hot water because of other churches needing the same bonding that we might not be able to offer. You know? And I want to give the same opportunity to everybody. And I know there's times that people goes to borrow money that you can't get it because the money's not there. I understand that. Now, this is a good opportunity at a prime time for you all to try to help you. I just worry about what could happen down the road by doing this when the next church is getting ready to do a project and they need the help. And maybe we do have the bonding, but we don't think they deserve it. Then by law or something, can they require us to do it?
Well, Commissioner, first off, let me say that that's a very good issue you're raising, because there is the old question of separation of church and state.
Mm-hmm.
The Supreme Court has held over time that as far as municipal bonds are concerned, as long as they are open for any type of congregation to come before a body and ask for these assistance, then the Supreme Court of the United States feels that is okay, because it's not actually, you're not using tax dollars or anything to support a particular congregation. Now, as long as you're open to all congregations bringing a project to you, that's fine. That does not mean you have to accept those projects. You might not like this project, okay, because you didn't like the architecture, didn't like where it was located, or there might not have been enough parking, which would have created a problem around downtown. That, you have the authority not to approve a project for those kind of reasons.
Right.
So, it's not that you're forced to have to take on or accept every project that will be coming before you by any kind of religious organization. It's merely, you open the opportunity for them to come before you and present a project. You still vote up or down based upon the project, not so much on the religious institution.
If you weren't getting this bonding and had to borrow the money from another source, it would be a higher interest.
Significantly higher, probably.
So there's an
4 or
advantage.
5% higher.
There's an advantage gained by getting this bonding. That's the whole reason for it, I'm sure, is to save the money on it.
Yes.
I just have grave concerns about it. I mean, and like I say, I have nothing against this church or any other. It's just my feelings as far as what decisions I have to make on this court.
One of the, I don't want to go into a law school presentation, but one of the most interesting cases that ever occurred regarding church and state separation actually dealt with Patty Clay Hospital. And the question was whether or not municipal bonds, in essence revenue bonds that were being issued for the benefit of Patty Clay, should be issued because their board, it was required to be a Methodist to serve on the board of Patty Clay Hospital. And it was a very interesting court case that was actually upheld and said, the court decided, no, that's okay. Because the bonds are not using tax dollars to support that institution. Actually, it's even more of an issue was that they had to be Methodist, but also
That's all I had.
Okay, thanks, Roger. And I can see your point a little bit, but it's kind of like they're here. We're glad to help any organization that we can. If we run out of the 10 million, then we've got somebody else that might have to wait till after January 1st, and then we can do 10 million again. But the important thing is that we're helping. We're making a commitment to the quality of life for Madison County. And we're able to do it through KRS and the feds without any liability. So I think it's great that we're in a position to help McCready Manor or Eastern Kentucky University or Patty A. Clay or First Christian Church. So with that said, I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution allowing them to proceed with. And as Charles said, once everything's gone through, they'll bring documentation back into the court with the exact amount of what they're going to sell, and then we'll approve them at that time. So I'd like a motion to approve the resolution allowing up to $3 million in bonding authority to the First Christian Church of Richmond.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Master King,
Yes.
Master Barger,
Yes.
Master Hughes,
Yes.
Master Combs.
Yes.
Judge Clark.
Yes. Glenn, Charles, John,
Very much. We appreciate
Betsy, good to see you all. Thank you all for coming in, and we've got a lengthy meeting, so we'll let you all get back to work too.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Richie.
Thank you all.
All right, Jim. Okay. Next on the agenda is our old buddy Craig Williams. Craig's been wanting to come in, and he's keeping me up to date on a weekly basis and kind of slipped through, but he wants to come in, kind of give his quarterly report on what's going on and bring us up to date on the working groups and CD Cab and the project. And Jeff Brubaker is here with him to answer any questions. We always ask Jeff, he's kind of the man in charge out there, to come in and answer any questions and make any kind of comments that he'd like to about Craig's report.
Great, thanks. Good morning, everyone. Jeff has an appointment. There's some legislative representatives and some people from the Pentagon are here today, and they're about to embark on a tour of the depot and the chemical limited area and the construction site, and he has to leave. So Jeff wanted to make a few comments before I begin Jeff is the site project manager for the Aqua program, the people that are constructing and will operate the facility. And so, Jeff, if you'd like to make a few comments.
Jeff, I didn't mean to turn the light out on you, buddy.
Thank you, Craig, and good morning to the court. I want to say it's been a pleasure working with Craig as the Madison County liaison. He has a very detailed presentation that he's going to deliver this morning. I think everyone is aware that this project receives intense interest from the local, state, as well as the federal level, and as Craig mentioned, I have a commitment here in about a half an hour with U.S. Representative Chandler's office, so I'm going to have to leave early. But I also want to encourage the public, and Craig is going to introduce this towards the end of his presentation, that we provide quarterly updates to the Citizens Advisory Commission, the CDCAB, and the general public. Our next meeting is tomorrow afternoon at 1:30 at Eastern Kentucky University, and I encourage everyone, if their schedule allows, to come out. That'll be a much more detailed presentation by myself as well as Bechtel Parsons, who's currently constructing the facility. So with that, Craig has a very good presentation this morning.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks for coming in, Jeff. We appreciate it.
Okay, well, what I wanted to do this morning was present and go over some of the things that have been in the media recently. And then, of course, we can cover any other aspects of the project that you'd like. But first, I'd like to talk about the fact that the AQUA, the Assembled Chemical Weapons Alternatives Program, which is the Pentagon program, an Army element. In other words, the Pentagon has delegated the responsibility to execute the program to the Army, but they have oversight responsibilities. They have filled the top post permanently now for that program with a gentleman named Conrad Wine, who will be at the CDCAB meeting tomorrow. For those of you that can come, I'm sure he would like to meet you. And they've filled that slot now with what they call a program executive officer, which is one step above a program manager. And what that means in Pentagon jargon is that the position is now of a higher stature and gets more priority within the review process and within the budgeting process and so on. So it elevates this program to a higher level within the Pentagon, which is positive for the program, positive for the funding, and reflects to the Congress that appropriates the money the importance of this program for a number of reasons, not the least of which is the chemical treaty, the international treaty that we're obligated under to dispose of this material. I also want to talk about the schedule and cost that you may have read about, the schedule going out and the cost increasing, the chemical weapons treaty breach, and the safety pause that you may have read about recently that took place out at the construction site. So first, Mr. Conrad Wine. I've known Conrad for 15 years or better. He's been associated with the DMIL program at various levels. Very fine gentleman. The judge has met him a time or two. In fact, we input into the selection process and urged the higher-ups within the Pentagon to go ahead and give Conrad this job permanently, and we were very pleased that he got it. He understands our community, he understands the project, he understands transparency and working with the community, so we're very pleased to have him. He will be here tomorrow at the meeting. So come and meet him if you'd like, or if you can. The cost and schedule in this program has always been a moving target, as everyone probably knows that's followed the program. And I just wanted to run through the process with you as to why recently the cost has been noted as escalating and the schedule has been noted as extending. It's rather complicated, but if you can understand how it works, I think it helps explain why it's still just a projection and not necessarily locked in stone. any acquisition program, which this is one, that increases its stated or projected cost life cycle of the project by more than 25%, by law is required to be recertified to Congress as a program that meets these criteria. So for example, if the Air Force wanted a bomber and they said it was going to cost $1 billion apiece, and they ordered 10 of them, and as the project moved forward, that cost became 25% more than what they had stated it was originally. Under this law, they would have to go back and explain to Congress why this project is necessary for the reasons that are listed within the criteria. So they would have to show that that bomber is essential to national security, there's no other alternative available for less cost, and so on. When this program exceeded its current projection, the then current projection, by 25% or more, that triggered a Nunn-McCurdy breach. The program was then looked at in the context of these criteria, and it was recertified to Congress in June of 2011, which means they went back and explained to Congress why the cost had increased that much, measured that against these criteria, went back to Congress and said, we meet all of these criteria, we have to get this done. It's a question of national security, we have no alternatives. The new costs have been reviewed by the Comptroller's Office in the Pentagon. It's a higher priority than other programs, and the management structure is capable of moving forward with the project successfully based on our review. So based on all of that, Aqua was recertified to Congress in June of 2011. Once that recertification took place, the acquisition program within the Pentagon had to go back and do what they call a re-baseline. They had to go back and look at the current cost projections based on the current design of the facility. Keep in mind, when the original cost projection was made, and the reason it went over the 25%, the design of the plant was not complete. They were projecting what they thought it was going to cost once the design was completed. Now that the design is 100% complete and we're 50% completed in construction, they have a very much clearer handle on what the cost is going to be, thus the increase. You can see within the acquisition program baseline process that if a program has to be it has to be measured against a formal baseline, which is what I just explained. So they said, for example, it was going to cost $4.5 billion for this plant. The revised cost is somewhere in the neighborhood of $5.3 billion. The reason it's in the neighborhood is because they didn't split the Pueblo, Colorado site and the Kentucky site in the overall Aqua budget. It just went up by I'm sorry, Jeff, what was the original number?
In 2007, $8 billion, and currently 10.6.
10.6. So it went up from 8 to 10.6. Our share of the 8 was 4.5. We projected our share is now going to be 5.3. The old completion date was 2021. The new completion date is actually the fall of 2023. Now, in this paragraph here, you'll see the revised acquisition program baseline has a risk factor put into the cost and schedule projections. But it's important to understand that that word risk, in this case, is strictly an execution and cost risk. It has nothing to do with risk to the public from chemical weapons, from their disposal, from the process itself. It's not like there's a higher risk associated to the public or the workforce with the operation. They just added a risk in the context of cost. So, for example, there's equipment inside that facility that if the one of them fails, the other one would take over the job. But if that one happens to fail at the same time the first one failed, that's going to extend the schedule and thereby extend the cost. Those kinds of failures are not expected, but they are included in the risks associated with these projections. So what you wind up with is an extremely conservative view of how much this is going to cost and how long this is going to take. They put in every risk factor you can possibly imagine and then double it. The Aqua program brings forward a cost and schedule projection that has their risks built into it. Then the Pentagon's Comptroller's Office adds more risk on top of that as far as the schedule and cost goes. And that's one of the reasons that the projection is back out to 2023 and the cost is back up, or is out actually up to $5.3 billion. The forecast for this year's budget is extremely encouraging. In 2012, the Aqua program got $477 million. In this year's, the president's budget, it's almost double, which indicates that the administration gets it, the Pentagon gets it, Congress is poised to approve that, and there have been no revisions to that request that anyone's aware of. So we anticipate that we will get fully funded this year. And because this is such a national priority and has been identified as more important than other programs, Mr. Panetta, the Secretary of Defense, and others have indicated that they will continue to fund this program at the levels requested in order to continue and probably beat the 2023, the current operational completion date. You can see on this chart, this is the revised chart. Here's the operational period, 2020 to 2023. Again, this is a projection. Some people think it'll be back to 2021. Others think it'll be even sooner. It's impossible to actually predict with certainty. You could run into problems, some very simple. When you get to the stage where they have to start running all of the electrical conduit and doing all the electrical work in the facility, if there's not enough electricians around to hire to do the job quickly, it's going to take you longer to do it. And if it takes you longer to do it, it's going to cost you more money. So on the other hand, there have been a number of real accelerated aspects of things over there recently that I think are making up any of these risks in the future. So that's where we are on the cost and schedule and why. And I think everyone's very sensitive to the schedule, but again, I want to emphasize that it is a very, very, very conservative, almost, I would classify it as a worst-case scenario. Some people don't like that terminology, but I believe that under the leadership of the Aqua program and Bechtel Parsons, they will get completed well before that 2023 date. Next, I'd like to talk about the treaty. The treaty was entered into force in April '97. There's 188 countries that are party to the treaty, including the United States. Within the treaty, we were required to have 100% destruction in the United States by 2007, with a one-time 5-year extension to 2012. Libya, Russia, and the United States were unable to meet that deadline. The organization that oversees the treaty, the OPCW, decided in December that as long as those countries continue to make a good faith effort in disposal, and as long as they're willing to allow additional inspections to occur, and that they increase their regimen in reporting the progress to the OPCW, that they would not impose any sanctions or other penalties against those countries. That was a relief, obviously, to everyone, particularly us, as we didn't want any kind of international trade prohibitions or other things to be imposed upon us as a country for being in breach of that extended deadline. I happened to be in The Hague at the 16th meeting of the parties to the treaty and presented there in support of what we were doing here in Kentucky and also in Colorado. And the vote was unanimous, save one country, Iran, which voted against allowing us to proceed without any penalty. But it really had nothing to do with chemical weapons. It was purely a political move on their part. And so we submitted our new revised cost and schedule to the OPCW on May 1st, shortly after we were in breach. And here's basically what it said. And it said it replicates what the acquisition program baseline put out, that we would be completing operations in 2023. Pueblo, as you see here, will be done a little before we are. They're currently 95% complete with construction and are in the early phases of systemization of their plant. We've had a very good relationship with the State Department in regards to the treaty, as well as with the Pentagon, the Army, the local folks here. The communication level is very impressive. Everybody's on the same page. Everybody's talking to each other, so there's no surprises in the program, and that's what we like. We're very highly coordinated with the Governor's Commission, which I sit on, and also with the Advisory Board that the judge co-chairs, and so things are moving along quite well. There are no real problems with communication or with other things, and there's a lot of issues associated with it, and I won't go into them now, but believe me, there's, I think, 6 working groups associated with the Advisory Board. They work on everything from permitting to monitoring to EDT to all sorts of things. So everybody's on the same page, and it's very encouraging. You may have read recently where they had a safety pause out at the facility. There were an increasing number of minor incidents associated with safety, and as everyone knows, safety is the most important part of the project out there. And so Bechtel Parsons decided that it was time to take a break and review all the safety procedures with all of the employees, with all of the supervisors, and refocus everyone's attention on safety. They did that. I think it was a prudent move. They shut down for a couple of days, went over all this stuff very intensely. We happened to go on a tour on the first day they were back with the Advisory Commission and Advisory Board, and what we saw were the groups with supervisors in groups not working, just going over all the safety procedures before they resumed their construction. So I think that was a very wise thing to do. There's been no incidents since the pause. Everyone's comfort level with how the operation is going from a safety standpoint is very high, and so we have a lot of faith in their emphasis on safety. And as we work towards the chemical operations themselves, obviously safety is the most important thing. Other issues that we've dealt with since we briefed last was igloo filtration system study. To make a long story short, the CDCAB, which stands for Chemical Demilitarization Citizens Advisory Board, which the judge co-chairs, made a recommendation that the vents all be closed on the storage igloos. We're awaiting a decision on that now. It was a very cooperative effort with the bluegrass chemical activity, and we're waiting to see what they decide to do. On explosive detonation technology, the CDCAB recommended the use of that technology for all of the mustard rounds stored at Bluegrass. The National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, requires that there be a environmental assessment or an environmental impact statement issued, and that there is a comment period on that document, and we will get an opportunity to comment on it once the draft is brought forward here in Madison County. It is currently under comment in Colorado, and we're watching those comments and the resolution of any issues associated with the NEPA process in Colorado very closely, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel and go back over a lot of the things that they've ironed out there. We believe that in the interest of safety of the workforce, that the EDT is something that we should deploy here rather than having these workers have to enter hot areas repeatedly and try and manually take some of these weapons apart. They're very old and they're in very bad shape as far as some of the bursters and so on.
Craig?
Yes, sir.
Explain to the crowd exactly what explosive detonation technology is. Please.
Explosive detonation technology is a contained process to, rather than to separate the agent from the round and process it through the neutralization facility, it will be introduced into a double-walled steel vessel that's about the size of this room as far as its height goes. and it will be exploded inside that chamber. What that does is removes the necessity of separating the different components within that projectile, the bursters, the burster wells, the agent, and so on, which has been the problem at other sites. The explosion basically destroys the agent content. The rest of the material, the metal parts and so on, fall to the bottom, and the process is repeated over and over. The vessels are, I believe, half-inch steel, double-walled half-inch steel. So it's not like they're going to take them out and blow them up in a field or something. And this technology has been used extensively in Europe and also recently in Madison, Alabama, where there was a incineration facility that had the same kinds of problems with these same kinds of rounds. So we have a good amount of technical data on how that operation went, what the emissions were, what the throughput rate was, and so on and so forth. And so basically it's exploding these rounds one at a time inside a steel vessel in order to destroy the agent inside of it rather than trying to take them apart. Jeff, do you want to add something?
And just to clarify, the thickness of the chamber is actually between 3 to 4 inches thick steel.
Okay.
And it can withstand, estimated to withstand over 10,000 cycles.
Yeah. So it's,
How many rounds do you have to explode, just curious?
For the mustard rounds, there's about 15,400 total.
Craig, tell them how many are at Pueblo.
they have 800,000 rounds at Pueblo, but they're not going to use
They're not going to use this.
EDT for all of them. That's an interesting story, but I won't go into it. But it turns out that what we've done here is because the lot numbers of these munitions matched up with some of the problem ones both in Utah and Anniston, Aqua and CMA, the Chemical Materials Agency, did a X-ray assessment of random sampled mustard rounds at this site to see what kind of shape they were on the inside. When they did that, they discovered that somewhere in the neighborhood of 55% of these indicated that they were going to be problematic. So if, let's just say it was 50%, that means you had 7,500 rounds that potentially workers would have to go into a contaminated area and try to manually pull the bursters out of these munitions in order to separate the agent from the explosive component. To intentionally send gentlemen and women into an environment like that and take that risk was something that the advisory board just couldn't justify. We did limit our recommendation to only the mustard rounds because those are the ones that have been problematic elsewhere. So at the moment, we're not recommending, and I don't believe they're even considering doing any of the nerve agent rounds in these EDTs. At one time, there was a proposal to do close to 300,000 rounds in Pueblo with this technology, but the community just said, that's not going to happen. So we're looking at 15,400 if this moves forward, which, and just my own personal opinion is that a decision will come out shortly that will say we're going to use this technology here. And
They don't have robots?
they do have robots, but robots can't perform the function of extracting the burster out of these shells. They can unscrew the top and they can crush that burster inside and then try to drain the agent. But what the X-ray actions showed was that in a significant number of these rounds, that agent is solidified as well as having the burster stuck. So even if you were to punch that burster down, you can't drain out the agent because it's been sitting in there since the 40s, and it's solidified to a point where you can't get it out. Now you could pressure wash it out, but if you start projecting how long it would take to pressure wash out all of these different rounds, you're extending the schedule even further, you're costing a lot more money. Plus, you would not alleviate the problem of having to send workers into a hot area intentionally on some significant number of times. So when you put it all together, It's not a process it's not a round that would be easily processed through the main facility. Is that fair enough, Jeff?
Yes, I mean, based on the X-ray data, we know that a substantial number of these rounds have solidified, the agent is solidified. That's not really unexpected. These rounds were produced in 1942 using essentially the recipe for generation similar to the mustard in World War I, but 1942, the U.S. had just entered the war, and the only real concern at that point was making as much of this as quick as possible. So later in the war and into the 1950s, the processes of making mustard were significantly advanced, such that the newer mustard tended to not degrade nearly as quickly or substantially. Unfortunately, these are the oldest munitions in the United States stockpile, dating back to treaty ratification in 1997. That, coupled with the same lot numbers that Craig mentioned out in Tooele and Anniston, showed that in many cases the bursters, due to the corrosivity of the agent, actually they failed in place. They can only remove the top portion of the burster, leaving the second part inside the projectile. That's where manual entry into the plant by teams dressed in cumbersome protective clothing was required. And for one or two or three bad apples, that might be something that would be considered under very extenuating circumstances, and obviously there'd have to be a very detailed health and safety plan and mitigating measures in place. But if we're looking at hundreds or possibly 7,500 of these rounds, that's really just not a safe way to proceed.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you. And lastly, the Economic Development Working Group of the CDCAB. We're being considered for a grant to launch the study that we've been talking about for quite a while from Kentucky's Department of Workforce Investment through the Bluegrass Area Development District. We're very hopeful. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
We're very hopeful that that grant will come through, which will allow us to launch the first phase of the study. Just to remind you what the study is about is we will have $1 billion worth of infrastructure at that facility, and we will have 1,000 workers at that facility when the project ends. What do we do with that infrastructure? What do we do with that workforce? We want to look at all of the various factors associated with that question ahead of the curve and create an economic opportunity to reuse that facility either in the military, the private sector, what have you, or at least reuse the infrastructure and take advantage of the imported workers of high quality that are working on the project. There are so many people that have extensive training in various areas that are associated with this project that are either here now or are coming here. We'd like to keep as many of them as we can right here in Madison County. And so whether the depot can use the facility and keep some of those workers, or whether the skills associated with it can be used by the private sector, or whether some of the contractors that are now working on the project might want to locate here and keep some of their workforce here in order to do other projects in the future. Those are all the kinds of questions that this Economic Development Working Group is looking at. We need some funds in order to launch the study, and we're hopeful that we might get it from the Kentucky Department of Workforce Investment. I co-chair that working group with the president of Cumberland Valley National Bank, Mr. Binge, and others at the Bluegrass Ad have been involved, as well as the Chambers of Commerce and so on and so forth. So we're excited about the potential to get the funding to do the study. It's something we've been working on very hard. I think I've provided you, I did last time, with a overview of the scope of what the study would look at. And so we hope to hear something before I get back here for the next briefing and have that study underway. And that's going to be a great asset to this community to know what we've got, what we can use it for, and how we can capitalize on it in the long run. In the meantime, the economic impact of the project currently, and as I said, they're 51% complete with construction right now. The project employment right now, 939 total. 863 of those people are working in Richmond, either at the Richmond Mall in the offices or out at the site. 76 people are working elsewhere on projects associated. 454 people are non-manual employees. 409 are craft, local hires, which includes the Bluegrass Area Development District as defined as local. 56% of the people that are working on this job are been hired out of Central Kentucky, and 8% out of the rest of Kentucky. When we first sat down with the contractors in Aqua and so on, we emphasized that we want as many people hired on this project as possible to come from right here. And they agreed to do that and make an effort to do it. And they've come very close to reaching the percentage that we articulated would be ideal, I think, which was 65%. So they're up to 56% right now. And of course, jobs and local hires are very important to the region. As far as the acquisitions go, $83.5 million has been spent in Kentucky. $47.3 million has been spent in Madison and surrounding counties for services and materials and so on. The payroll has been $334 million in local payroll thus far, and it is expected to be another $476 million or so by the end of the project. This is a recent photo of the construction site. As you can see, a lot of it is now under roof. This is the control and support building area over here. They're putting the ventilation system in up at the top. This is the second story of the munitions disposal building over here. This area now is right here is enclosed with the batch hydrolyzers. And on the back side, there's other buildings that are completed. You can't see them in this photo. This area here is going to be the pollution abatement system, the air filtration system. All of the charcoal filtration apparatus will go in this area here. The way the facility operates as far as keeping the air clean is air is drawn in through filtration from outside the point furthest away from any possible contamination. And that air moves through the facility towards the potentially hottest area, or the area that has the highest potential to be contaminated with agent. So it moves from here this way through the building, on through the building, on through the building, until it gets to the explosive containment area, which is where the weapons are taken apart, which would be the most likely place for agent vapor to appear if it was going to appear anywhere in the plant. And then it exits through there into this charcoal filtration system before it's released into the environment. So it's what you call a tiered negative pressure process, in order to make sure that the workforce, the further away you get from the hot area, the less chance there is of any of the air being contaminated, either with agent or any other residual material. As you can see from this photo, they're starting to do work, a lot of work inside the plant now. Quite a bit of it is under roof. This is a grid carrier apparatus for all of the electrical equipment and everything that'll be in the control room. All of the wiring and piping and everything will be laid into these grids, and then there'll be a floor put on top of that where all of the computer operators and the computers themselves will be stationed in this part of the control room. This is the ventilation system on the community room that was recently finished. This building that you see here is where they had the OSHA event. It holds, that building can hold everyone that's on site. Prior to having so many workers on site, the execution of an emergency response was to try and evacuate everybody, which if you have 300 people, you can evacuate them pretty quick. As the number of people increases, that becomes less and less of an option. So what they've done is they've overpressurized this building so that the entire workforce in a matter of minutes can get into this building, and all the air that would go into that building will come through this filtration system. So if there was an incident at the chemical limited area, which is over here, where agent escaped, instead of people having to get in their cars and trying to leave the site, they would go to this building. That building would be sealed off, and then any air going into that building would be filtered before it got in the building, and that building would be negative pressurized, similar to the main facility, and people could be in there until the all clear was sounded and they wouldn't have to try and evacuate the facility. That was a joint effort between the monitoring working group of the CDCAB, Aqua, and the Pentagon to decide that that was a much better opportunity, or presented a much safer opportunity for workforce should there be an incident. And that's reflective of the teamwork that's been going on the project. And a reminder, as Jeff pointed out, tomorrow's advisory board meeting is at 1:30 at Perkins. The public's invited. As far as the fiscal court goes, I've talked to the judge, and I've talked to Mayor Connolly and Mayor Barnes, and I know that they have these coordinated meetings every so often, and we've talked about possibly doing a joint tour of the facility with all three governments, the city council in Berea, the commissioners in the city, and you all, and try to get everybody out there at once instead of piecemealing it and having them have to go through so many tours, because it interrupts the construction process when you have, people on tour. So rather than bring you all out and then bring the city out and then bring the Richmond City out, we thought we'd try to coordinate that. Ken said he would, put that forward and see how that goes. It's impressive. If you go out there and see what's going on out there, you will understand the complexity of it better and why it costs so darn much. So you all are invited. Everybody's invited tomorrow. Here's in your packet, there's contact information for anybody and everybody associated with the program. And with that, I'll thank you very much for your time and take any questions you might have.
I had a couple of questions, Greg. That's a good report. Thank you very much. It's in detail, I'll tell you that. I know there's a lot of work went into it. Couldn't you explain, like, say, I know we're going to employ so many more people and this and that, but they've had some recent layoffs. Is there a question for that, or an answer for that?
The answer is that the layoffs have taken place on the depot side and not on the D-mill side. The chemical activity is a tenant on the depot. The chemical activity actually is hiring more and more people as they prepare for the transition to actual disposal. They're going to go up from, I believe it's in rough numbers, from about 46 people to close to 200 when they start to get ready to move the munitions out of the igloos and bring them over to the D-mill plant. The layoffs and the cutbacks in employment that you've been hearing about are on the depot side, and they're not associated with the chemical weapons disposal project. Those employment numbers are going up.
Are they considering those that have been laid off to go into the other side?
I don't know. I don't know if there's
a good question.
I don't know if there's a priority for laid off workers on the depot to transition over. I don't know that. You'd have to ask Colonel Rogers about the layoffs, and of course Bechtel Parsons does the hiring. So I'm not sure. I can ask that. I think that as they do with veterans, priority for security guards and other things, I think there should be a priority for that.
Well, that's just a quick. I'm sorry.
Larry, no, it's a good question, and I met the other day with the new chief of staff of Colonel Rogers, and they are looking at that, but they're in a process right now where most of this is skilled labor in the construction phase of it. So it's if there's somebody that is qualified, I think they're looking at that and giving them a priority as far as.
Well, I would hope they would. I just know some personal people that, did lose it, and I understand that. And, like I said, it may be a skill that they don't have. I don't know that. And then the other thing is, as I look at these dates and stuff, especially at the other sites, we're going to have a lot of knowledge how everything works before we really get into it, aren't we?
Oh, quite. Not only will we...
Any mistakes we can make...
Lessons learned that we've learned from the other sites will be part of what we're basing our approach on, but also there's a large number of people that are migrating here from some of these other sites that have particularly weapons handlers and people that have had years of experience in dealing with these weapons. So we're going to have a lot of expertise. We're going to have a lot of lessons learned that we can capitalize on. And in Alabama, for example, when they finished their operations, they hadn't thought about what are you going to do with all of these workers. So a lot of them are trying to get jobs up here. What we're looking at in the Economic Development Working Group is how we keep them here, because there's no place left for them to go as far as D-mill goes. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of expertise associated with our project.
It's a good report, Greg.
What about the
Thank you.
Russians? How's the Russians doing on their end, do you know?
Well, it's funny. When we went and presented our plans to the OPCW, and very openly, and then Libya came along and presented their plans, and I have copies of both of the reports that went in, but Russia has classified theirs, and they have stated that they'll be done by 2015, but it's questionable as to whether or not that is going to be even a reasonable date to expect. They're very secretive about where they are, the status of their program. So officially, they'll be done in 2015. I would be very surprised unless they cut back even more on their environmental and workforce protection. You can always get it done quicker if you just go bury it. But that's not acceptable. So no one's quite sure how they plan to do that, and they're not talking about it.
Who was the only country that didn't vote for the treaty, if I may ask?
Iran. They have other issues with the United States that have nothing to do with this, so they were trying to capitalize on the fact that we were in breach of an international treaty when they're over there making nuclear weapons, but that's a whole nother story. Roger?
Don't have anything.
Okay.
Looks like you done a good job.
Thank you.
I want to reiterate what Craig said. You don't know how fortunate we are to get Conrad where he is today, because there's a lot of controversy on the top, and we had some individuals that still aren't crazy about what we're doing here, and Conrad understands. He's just a super guy, and we're very, very fortunate. I know Craig was very influential with a lot of influential people to help get Conrad and talk him into taking this, because he didn't really want it at the time, last time we met. But we're very fortunate, and I look forward to seeing him tomorrow.
What we don't need now is somebody new coming in and thinking they can reinvent the whole process and take over and just do it my way and start slowing everything down. So we were fortunate. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks,
Come
Craig.
and see us now out there when we get a tour scheduled, please. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Craig, next is second reading of ordinance 1203. It's a budget amendment on the jail fund, and we went in depth on this on the first reading. It's ordinance 1203. These are funds over and above what we budgeted for a total of $119,594, and we need to approve ordinance 1203 to put those back into reserve for transfer into the jail account.
So moved.
Second.
Master King,
Yes.
Master Barger,
Yes.
Master Combs,
Yes.
Judge Clark.
Yes. Next is another budget amendment on a road fund, and these are unanticipated funds that we were able to secure and came in for a total of $255,968, and motion will be in order to approve this budget amendment, ordinance 1204.
So moved.
Second.
Master King,
Yes.
Master Barger,
Yes.
Master Combs,
Yes.
Judge Clark.
Yes. Next is second reading of ordinance 1208. This is a land use change for Bobby and Marilyn Garrett out at 2410 Big Hill Road from C7 Community Ag to C4 Community General. We talked about this. As I always do, ask, is there anybody in the audience that would like to approach the court either to or against the proposed zone change? I think we did this on the first reading. If not, on the recommendation of the Madison County Planning Commission, a motion would be in order to approve ordinance 1208 land use change for Bobby and Marilyn Garrett.
So moved.
Second.
Master King,
Yes.
Master Barger,
Yes.
Master Hughes.
Yes.
Master Combs.
Yes.
Judge Clark.
Yes. Next, we have first reading of ordinance 1206, and these, we're going to talk a little bit about land use change regulations. So Dwayne, you want to come on up and kind of turn the show over to you.
The first ordinance there, is it the one about the, I don't have numbers on mine. Is this about amending the regulations?
Rebel 6.
Okay.
It's Section 40, paragraph of the land use regulation about utilizing an alternative regulation for zoning map amendments, Dwayne.
Okay. Basically, back some time ago, it was mentioned in fiscal court about taking advantage of opportunity in KRS 100 that allows zone changes that are proposed to not have to come through all the public hearing processes with the fiscal court and kind of expedite the process where it's a zone change that's non-controversial, there's nobody against it, and we've seen several of those that just come through. It's a no-brainer. This KRS 100 2111 allows for this alternative regulation where if regardless of where the zone change originates, be it with fiscal court or the planning commission or the public, that it goes through the planning commission. If there's a non-issue with it, as far as there's nobody that's in opposition to it, then the planning commission's decision would be the final decision for the approval of the zone change, with the understanding that within 21 days of the planning commission's public hearing, and they would follow all the same public hearing, public notice requirements, but within 21 days of that public hearing, then the fiscal court or a member of the public that feel like they've been aggrieved by the planning commission's decision, within 21 days of that hearing date, they could submit a written request to the planning commission that the fiscal court hear the zone change, so you get the final decision-making authority. But if that notice is not filed within 21 days of the planning commission's public hearing, then according to KRS 100, planning commission's decision stands. It still has to come through your all's process for the ordinance adoption, but the planning commission's decision stands. And Mark and I have got to work out, I guess, the mechanics of what that looks like once it comes to you guys, but it expedites the process, and from what I can gather, looking through the statute, it saves the applicant about 30 days in the process, because typically an applicant or anybody that's aggrieved by any decision of the fiscal court, they have 30 days from the date of your final decision to appeal that decision. Well, with this, that 30-day clock would start ticking with the planning commission's final decision and not with the fiscal court's final decision. So it basically saves about 30 days in the process and expedites the process a little bit for an applicant to be able to get moving with a development plan.
And Dwayne, make this clear that this involves those zone changes, that there's no controversy surrounding them. There are no map changes. I mean, they're exactly where they're supposed to be. They're in the right zone on the map. Nobody's complaining either way. They're just like we just approved one, Bobby and Marilyn Garrett. I mean, it was a no-brainer. Everything lined out. Everything was straight up.
That's correct.
And agreed with the ordinances that we've adopted. So it's kind of like it's these simple things that the Planning Commission can recommend, that we don't have to hold these people up for a month and go through 2 more advertisements and 2 more readings, a first reading and a second reading. But we still have the right, the opportunity in 21 days to.
This probably cleared up a bunch of oversights.
Yeah, and obviously the issue is if the planning commission's decision is to deny a zone change, all the applicant has to do is submit a letter that says they want the fiscal court to have the final say, and it comes to you guys anyway. Otherwise, if they don't submit that letter within 21 days, then the planning commission's decision is final, and that's the end of the story.
And the court can actually initiate the request too.
That's correct.
Planning and zoning commission rules a particular way, if you're not comfortable with it, the court can send a letter asking that be reviewed.
That's correct.
You're not giving up control.
One member of the court can do that, or is it?
I think the court would have to.
Well, I don't know about that.
But it's going to streamline the process in those cases in which nobody's arguing that
Right.
everybody believes it's in the best interest of the changed.
Yeah, and the majority of the zone changes we hear, there's very little I mean, there's very little opposition to it. Most of it's just people wanting to know what's going on. Every now and then we run into those controversial issues, and those I'm sure will still wind up in your lap.
Comments, Greg?
I just look at it as, we want to have it as compact as can to not cause too much complications, but I don't like the idea of, as looking at it, because sometimes it's good to be aware of these things going on that normally, if it ain't never brought to us, that we wouldn't know about. So, just thinking on that fact of, unless we dig into things, we sometimes don't know what's going on. And then if it comes to us, whether it's controversy or not, it's good I feel for me to know about, what's going on in the county. So,
and I can change our process to where we can automatically notify you guys of a zone change hearing that's going before the planning commission, so you know what's being proposed to the planning commission on the front end. Before the planning commission's public hearing even occurs, I can just include you all in the loop of all those zone changes, so you know what's going on with it before the planning commission even hears it. That way you're kept in the loop on it, and if you've got concern with it, then you can make it clear that it's those are issues that you want it to come before you.
Use the county email, was that the best way to do that?
Sure, I can do that, and if you don't check your email real often, I'll make sure it's in your box up here so that you'll have copies of whatever's proposed on all the zone changes, before the planning commission hears it.
Roger?
If I understand what I just asked for ago, if it does pass the planning commission, it doesn't come to us, and one of us has a concern about it, wants it brought here to be discussed, it's not going to happen unless a majority of us on the court votes to have. So it takes more than one. But one individual can make a complaint within 21 days and have it heard again.
Yeah, KRS.
A magistrate could make a personal.
I don't think a magistrate would be considered an aggrieved party. I think an aggrieved party would be that somebody next door says, wait a minute, I don't want this zone changed.
Well,
they can initiate the action. If it's something that the court wishes to initiate, and of course the court doesn't act individually, but it would have to act collectively like any other issue.
I don't think it's right that one person has got a more voice than one magistrate on the court.
Just the way the KRS, the statute reads, it says any aggrieved person files a written request. So anybody that's aggrieved, any individual can file a letter that requests that you guys look at it. But when it comes to the legislative body, it says the appropriate legislative body or fiscal court files a notice. So it's a collective body that you guys feel like, hey, we would like to see this, then you'd have that opportunity. Otherwise, any other individual that feels like they've been aggrieved by the planning commission's decision could request that you look at it.
Well, that doesn't say majority.
No, well, the one dealing with the fiscal court says the legislative body or fiscal court. So I'm assuming that would mean the fiscal court body and not an individual of the fiscal court. But
Billy Ray?
I don't have a problem with it.
Larry? Okay, any comments from the audience talking about this? It's just kind of simple and to the point. It's kind of streamlining a little bit. It's there to help these individuals that are out there, trying to get a zone change. The planning commission, I think, is as good as any planning commission. I don't think anyone on there is ever going to do anything that isn't right. And these are instances where, like we did with Bobby and Marilyn, I mean, it was in the correct, on the map. Nobody complained, nobody said anything, nobody came in. And it's good for the community, what they're doing. So it's just simply, if there's no controversy, if there's no issue about it, involved in it, then they can. But anybody that comes up and didn't know about it or whatever has 21 days to file a grievance, and it'll come in front of us.
yeah, obviously, if any of your constituents were to call you and say, I'm concerned about the zone change that was just approved, then all they've got to do is give us a letter and say, I want the fiscal court to review it, and you guys will review it. So if you get calls or complaints from a constituent, all you've got to do is just tell them, submit a letter, and it automatically comes to you for your review anyway. There's no way to legally take you guys out of the loop entirely of these, because you're elected by the people to represent them, and we can't take you out of the loop, and certainly not trying to, but trying to eliminate some of the things that just bog you down.
My only concern is, like I said, is, that we're informed of the projects that's going on, because sometimes, people call you and you sitting there and clueless, not knowing what's going on. So get us that information that'd be good for me.
I'll do that.
Okay, if no further, let's go on a motion to approve ordinance 1206. And like I say, this is first reading. I mean, if anybody comes up, we can discuss this. Dwayne and Mark have some language they want to work on for second reading. You all will have that before it comes to court. And anything that you all want to put in there, you've got suggestions, just get them to Dwayne or Mark, and then we'll, if you all want to pass this. But, like I said, this is first reading. It can be changed before the next meeting. So I'd ask for a motion on the recommendation of the Planning Commission to approve first reading of ordinance 1206.
So moved.
Second.
Master King,
Yes.
Master Barger,
Yes.
Master Hughes,
Yes.
Master Combs,
Yes.
Judge Clark.
Yes. All right, next one, Dwayne, is 1207, and this land use change regulation, dealing with expanding the section dealing with animal feeding operation and concentrated animal feeding operation.
Basically, this is just trying to clean up some of the language in our regulations. Currently, we have a section there that basically says large quantity animal operations are required to have a conditional use permit from the Board of Adjustments before they can go in. Well, there's that large quantity, there's never any number, there's never anything that really qualifies what that large quantity is. 5 hogs to me would be a large quantity. It wouldn't be to a hog farmer. So it just, this kind of relieves some of the arbitrary decisions that have to be made. So basically, all we've done with this is define, using state law, we've defined what animal feeding operations and concentrated animal feeding operations are. And we basically say the same thing. They have to go to the Board of Adjustments for a conditional use permit. We're not imposing anything on them other than what the state already requires. So the rest of the language in this regulation it comes straight out of the state law, and basically just requires, when they go to the Board of Adjustments for a conditional use permit to open up a concentrated animal feeding operation or an animal feeding operation, they have to provide to the Board of Adjustments copies of the state required permits. We're not requiring them to get anything extra, to do anything extra, other than to just provide us documentation that shows that they've contacted the state and they've got the necessary permits to operate their operation. This does not affect a farmer.
Thank you. I was getting ready to
A farmer that grows crops and has cattle on his farm, this does not have anything to do with them. If you're growing any crops on your land at all, you don't qualify as a concentrated animal feeding operation or an animal feeding operation. This is just for those feedlots where they bring animals in and they leave them on the lot, and they have to bring the feed in and feed them, and then they transport them out. It's just in and out, in and out. There's no crops being grown on the farms at all. So your typical farmers that have cattle on their farms, it doesn't affect or impact them at all.
This is more or less just for feedlots.
Feedlots.
Okay.
And Larry, I think we're all familiar, we had one instance, and what this does, it just designates what is a feedlot, how many cattle are there, and it gives the planning the Board of Adjustments the right to look at this, and under state law, are you legal or are you not legal? And this is what you have to do and this is what you can't do.
Yeah. And quite honestly, the one that we've had in the past, we weren't aware, I wasn't aware of all the state permits that were required for them to have that type of operation, nor was anybody else that I ran across. So what we've done is take the state's requirements, plug them into their rigs, so that they at least gives them an avenue to go to say, if you're going to do this, these are the avenues you need to go to, in order to comply with the state requirements, and then just provide us with documentation that shows that you've complied with the state's requirements.
Well, that one's still in court anyway, isn't it?
I think
Will be.
I think it's a good thing that we have as far as to put a limit number on them, because, I mean, you know, when they do get there, that we'll have a little bit of control that, you know, that we might be able to have as the floor mat for them to look at and say, well, this is going to be a feedlot. We don't want people, you know, that's got a house and a man buys a farm, throws a bunch of cattle in there and just makes it a feedlot where they beat all the grass out and it's just a mud hole and get all the drainage and manure and all that stuff down in their lots. You know, if I know that we don't have much impact on that, it'd have to go forward the board adjustments, but, you know, still this gives us, I see maybe a little control as far as limited to what is a feedlot.
We had one situation on Tates Creek that was probably a lot that was less than an acre, sitting right in the middle of houses, less than an acre. They had five cows on it, 2 hogs, about 24 chickens, 2 or 3 horses, and a couple goats, and a big barn on that less than an acre lot. Well, you can imagine what the rest of what the lot looked like and what the neighbors thought about it, but we had no control over it. We had no, you know, this was early on, and we had no control over what they do with it. But that would be considered an animal feeding operation, because they brought all the animals in there. There's no room to grow any crops on it. So those kind of things we could control and try to help regulate and protect some property owners.
Is that what brought this about, that type of situation?
Those type of situations.
It protects the homeowners and landowners, you know, from having to, you know, I'm against imposing any kind of law on people, but sometimes protection is better. And, you know, as looking at that, that's what I look at, is to protect them people from being imposed with all these things.
Okay, I think that's pretty clear. Any other comments? If not, motion, and this, like I said again, this is first reading. Anybody has, after you look at it again, comments? Well, if you have people in your jurisdiction or people anywhere in the county that call you about it, then call Dwayne and answer any questions they might have, and then we can talk about it before second reading. But I think it's just another thing that's updating the Planning Commission's ability or authority, well, not really, the Board of Adjustments, to designate what's what. Motion would be in order to, for ordinance 1207, first reading.
So moved. So moved.
Second.
Pastor King,
Yes.
Pastor Barger,
Yes.
Pastor Hughes.
Yes.
Pastor Combs,
Yes.
Judge Clark.
Yes. Next
Greg
one.
getting ahead of you, Larry.
Tough.
Next one is first reading of ordinance 1209, and that's FEMA flood maps. And we're all very familiar with FEMA flood maps. Dwayne, you want to talk to us a little bit about this?
If you all recall, back a couple years ago, FEMA submitted, the federal government did a flood map modernization project across the United States. We filed protest and opposition to it and appeals to it, and basically because of funding reasons, FEMA basically came back and said, we've made no alterations to your flood map. This is what you've got. They've now submitted those the final version of those maps to our office, and have told us that the effective date for these maps are October the 2nd, 2012. This is not an option whether you adopt the maps or not. Federal government says these are your flood maps, and here they are, basically. So what we've tried to do is notify the public, number one, that the maps will become effective October the 2nd, 2012, and there is if an individual's property is in a designated floodplain area, then they need to go ahead and contact their insurance company to go ahead and procure flood insurance now, because they can be grandfathered in if their property's currently not in a floodplain area, but will be when the new maps become effective. Then they can get grandfathered in and get a lower insurance premium as if they're not in the floodplain, than waiting until the maps become effective. The ordinance that's in front of you is mandated by FEMA and by the Division of Water that we basically amend the flood damage prevention ordinance to meet the Fed's new requirements on that. And we had already adopted the most current version of the regulations. The only two big sections that changed in this ordinance compared to the 2008 ordinance was under the general provisions, Article 3, Section B, it just changed the effective date of the map. The old maps was September the 28th, 1990, and we're changing it to October the 2nd of 2012. And then the other section that changed was Section B of the permit review process. That changed as well, just to provide a little more descriptive language dealing with the Federal Water Pollution Control Act amendments of 1972. It's really insignificant. The changes that they've made to it are insignificant. They have really no bearing on anything because, like I say, we already had the most current version of the flood damage prevention ordinance, and it just made those two modifications that was mandated by FEMA.
Well, this picture that you gave us, this is just one.
That's an example of what the maps that we have available in our office now with the aerial photos and the pictometry. So if you have any constituents, if there's anybody in the general public, we can really get down close to your property and tell exactly what's going on with your property as it relates to the new FEMA flood maps. And that's just to give you an example of what we can show and how we can help the property owners determine whether their property's really in a floodplain area or not.
It's good to know that too, Dwayne, on if you ain't looked at it, you need to look at it because it would be better if you get your insurance before October, because I know with me, just an incident is, if I get it now, it's going to be around $300, but if I wait until after then, you're looking around $3,000 a year. So it's better, a lot of savings now on this end if people was aware of it to look at it, as my agent told me. So, you know, if you're out there and you in them low-lying areas, you need to look at it because after October there'll be a lot of crying if you go looking at it.
And as you all know, we held a lot of public forums to try to keep the public informed, and we've mailed out several of these notices. We've got it on our website. We've got it on the county's access channel, trying to alert the public to go ahead and don't procrastinate now. Go ahead and get with your insurance company to get your flood insurance so you can get a reduced premium, because it is, Mr. King's right, it does jump dramatically if you wait until after the maps become effective.
Well, I'm sure if someone's had problems in the past, especially with, what we've had, best thing you can do is call.
That's right.
Don't wait. Go ahead and call, and whether you're in it or not, then you definitely know.
Yeah, call us or come see us. Between myself or Tom Moreland with the GIS department, we can pull up a map of your property and show exactly what's going on with your property and
Have you had a
how
lot
it's
of calls,
affected.
Dwayne?
We've had a lot. We've had several calls, a lot of people in and out. We've had some people from the very first of our public forums that we had that's called us every month and said, I'm waiting to get that insurance now until we know the effective date, because obviously they're saving that premium. But so those folks, we called them immediately and said, hey, here's the drop dead date on this. You need to probably go ahead and get your insurance company lined out.
Well, let me say this. If say that does happen and someone does get it, and then they sell that place, will that go on?
The grandfather clause stays with the property.
It carries on at the premium you get it in.
As long as it's paid.
As long as it's paid.
If you let it lapse,
you don't get no more.
You're toast.
Be a good thing.
Judge, I've got a question. We've got item 4 here, ordinance 1208. We've also got item 7, ordinance 1208.
He said that.
It's 9.
9? Okay.
Yeah, we didn't change it on the new agendas.
Making sure before we
And
get
it's 1209.
the notes are right when they come out.
Very observant. Very observant.
All right, any further discussion? I'm just very upset that the federal government had plenty of money to hire some outfit to come in here from out of state and take pictures and then put everything within so many feet of every creek in the county, and then offer the opportunity to protest and provide evidence why they're not in the floodplain, and don't have the money to hear any protest, and just took into consideration what this out-of-state company said and passed it. But it's kind of one of those deals where you're darned if you do and you're darned if you don't, because if we don't accept the proposed maps, then we're no longer eligible for FEMA emergency funding, which would be devastating in the case of an ice storm or a flood or anything else. So I think they knew that they've kind of got everybody. Two cities are in the same position. I mean, they've added so much to people and put a hardship on a whole lot of people, but you know, it's the feds and what they say goes. So I don't think we have an option other than to pass these to keep us eligible for any FEMA funding for emergencies from here on out. So.
And if we don't pass these, those people can't get that discount, can they? I mean, they got us where they want us.
Yeah. So, and with that said, motion be in order to approve first reading of ordinance 1209, which is the FEMA flood maps.
So move.
Second, we'll just work through a bad situation.
Master King,
Yes.
Master Barger,
Yes.
Master Hughes,
Yes.
Master Combs,
Yes.
Judge Clark.
Yes. Next is Road Department open bids, rock, gas, oil, and culverts. Mark?
Judge, I had the opportunity here in court this morning to review all the bids. They were all sealed and received no later than June 8th at 4 o'clock, which I assumed Leroy would be appropriate time for those. There's one bid for gas, and that was from the Riley Oil Company. Also, Richmond Petroleum also has a good bid. As for the rock bid, the Allen Company, and then for the culverts, we had 3 bids. It was the Interstate Fence Supply, Ferguson Waterworks, and Kentucky Underground. They were all properly sealed and, again, all submitted by the appropriate timeframe. So give these to.
Thanks, Mark. So as we'll let Leroy review those and come back with a recommendation at our next court meeting. Next, appointments. I'd like the court's permission to reappoint Kathy Edson to the EKU Center for the Arts Community Operations Board with a term which will expire June 30th of 2014.
So move.
Second.
Master King,
Yes.
Master Barger,
Yes.
Master Hughes,
Yes.
Master Combs,
Yes.
Judge Clark.
Yes. And next, I'd like the court's permission to reappoint me as a board member of the EKU Center for the Arts Community Operations Board with a term till June 30th of 2014.
So move.
Get the second.
Second.
I didn't hear. Who was first?
So move.
Okay. Master King,
Yes.
Master Barger,
Yes.
Master Hughes.
Yes.
Master Combs.
Yes.
Judge Clark.
Abstain. Okay, personnel, Leroy, he's got somebody who wants to recommend to the court.
I have one person to recommend the court to hire, Kenny Skaggs, on the for the concrete crew, and he does have his CDL license.
What's the hourly wage on it? What's his hourly wage?
$11.
So move.
Second.
Master King,
Yes.
Master Barger,
Yes.
Master Hughes,
Yes.
Master Combs,
Yes.
Judge Clark.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leroy. Judge's report, I didn't think I had much, but I do. First, explain this briefly because we're dragging this out a little bit, but it's been a really good meeting. Doing the Barnes Mill project, county was responsible for obtaining right-of-way for the whole project, and it's kind of handed over to us from the state. And in doing this, we had all the surveys done, the appraisals done, everything went according to plan. But we had one person, John and Judy Cornelison, on a farm, and we purchased some land from them, also some construction easement where we could go on and put it back. In doing this, it was kind of left out of the design, I think, because they didn't expect, we had some soft rock, and they had to change the degree of the cliffs, so they had to channel the water on down and over the back into a creek. In doing this, they put these 2 diversion ditches inside the farmer's right-of-way. So he brought that to my attention, and we've been down to look at it, and we've had it resurveyed. I have the money approved from Department of Transportation, but I would, what we're doing is we're purchasing this easement from him so we can leave the ditches there, and then we've got to put up a fence for him, and they'll be outside the fence, the property owner's fence. So we worked it out for $4,000 for this easement. You can call it a utility easement, drainage easement, construction easement, whatever. I don't know what Mark's put on here. But it's to replace, and you know, it's just, it was a mistake, and it's there, and it's got to stay there because the water will come right over the rock and wash out in the road, so we had to have it. And I need the court's authorization to allow me to sign a right-of-way easement to go on and close this out on that on the hill section of Barnes Mill.
State's furnishing the money for it.
Yes. And as the deed will go, the land will go to Department of Transportation.
So moved.
Second.
Pastor King?
Yes.
Pastor Barger?
Yes.
Pastor Hughes?
Yes.
Pastor Coles?
Yes.
Judge Clark?
Yes. Got a little note here from Phyllis Adams, and wanted to thank the Fiscal Court for our support for the 2002 Billboard program. Your help touched the lives of many children, and this is a certificate of appreciation of the Madison County Fiscal Court by making Children's Champions of Madison County for making a difference in our community. Children's Champions Billboard Program 2012. Just wanted to mention that and thank the court for supporting that. We've been a sponsor of that for years and years and years, and it's great. I get to go to the school and present the award, and these kids are just, they really get into it. Got to speak to the Retired Federal Employees Union. It was their 40th anniversary in Madison County last night. Had between 40 and 50 there, and a lot of them are very active, and we had a good meeting. They had cake, and I told them when I got started that you know, I'm glad everybody was interested, because 3 of my close friends in the 80s, and Fletcher was 90, asked me not to get too windy and just speak a little bit. No, I'm just kidding. But
Not eat too much cake.
I just told them my reputation precedes me. Cut it short, in other words. But we had a good time last night. Relay for Life, so important, and we're a sponsor. It's this Friday night, the 15th, at Calder Middle School. Track opens at 7 o'clock, and we'll have some kickoff activities for that. And that's just a wonderful program, and we're so glad. Many of our employees have put together a team, County Cares. When you all leave, you can see the footprints and the T-shirts all around the halls, and those are people that have donated or agreed to walk. So it's a wonderful project to fight cancer, and something that, you know, it's just part of that quality of life of Madison County. We get so many people to get involved in those type things. So we'd like to invite everybody out on behalf of Relay for Life to the Calder Middle School at 7 o'clock on Friday night. And that's all I have in the judge's report. We'll go to department heads. Carl?
Just wanted to let you guys know, we've been talking, and you guys have been seeing in the monthly reports, the revision of the emergency operations plan, switching from the old annex tab-based document, which was very cumbersome, over 1,100 pages. It was a state-required format. We've converted to the new ESF-based, which is Emergency Support Functions, EOP, with the 15 emergency support functions. We got state concurrence for that last week. We're one of the first to get it done. There's been a few others, but out of the 120 counties, we're in the top few that have gotten it done. So I'll be bringing a presentation to sit down with you guys and all the other governments and go over the plan, get your endorsement of it. You have to pass a resolution accepting this as our new plan. We took the 1,100 pages down to about 200, so you could actually read the whole document now and know what everything says. Had all the community partners involved, from the health, medical, emergency response. Everybody involved had a number of meetings set up to meet with them and go over all the revisions. And we've actually been asked to document our process because it was one of the most thorough the state thought, so they're going to be sharing it with all the other communities that haven't done it so far. So I'll be bringing that PowerPoint by to you. We're limiting it to about a 20-minute PowerPoint and 10 minutes for question and answers, but we're going to have to do that with all three governments. So excited to get that done. And then we've totally revamped our website for EMA and CSEP. Go on it and take a look and see what you think of it. I think you'll be impressed. A lot more photos, a lot more easy to understand materials, and we're pretty excited about that. And some more analytical things behind the scene that we can see who's hitting the website and how often they're staying on it. Are they really going there on purpose, or was it accidental kind of thing? So very excited about that. Any questions?
There's a link on the Madison County website
Yes.
for that. Yeah. Is that the primary way you get to it, is through the Madison County?
No, we have our own separate one, www.madisoncountyema.net. I'll get you there as well. But I'm kind of excited because we put a lot of work into it, and there's, 1,000 photos in there of different issues and things that have occurred in the county over the last, so many years. So, any questions?
That's interesting. You can monitor that and tell how many.
Yeah, well, our old one we couldn't. It was just the technology didn't exist, but now with all the changes we can. We knew how many people went there, but you didn't know if they went there for 3 seconds or 30 minutes. So now we can track that by day, week, month, and see what's going on with it. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
All right, any other department heads? Scott?
Congratulations on that new baby.
Thank you, Larry. Thanks, everybody. Good morning, everyone. I just got a couple of things I want to mention. Kentucky River Sweep is this Saturday from 9 to 2 p.m. We'll be assembling at the Fort Boonesboro Beach to clean up that area, and we'll have a barbecue at lunchtime, and from 9 to 2, free T-shirt for everybody who comes out and participates and helps cleans up that section of river. So there is a little bit of argument about if it's the 20th or the 21st Kentucky River Sweep that we participated in, but I'm going to get to the bottom of that and figure that one out real quick. So. Also, just want to let court know that our recycle truck that we ordered back in February was delivered yesterday. We've got it on site. I've got have a radio installed, which I think is finished, and some striping on the Packer truck, and we'll have it out for the next pickup. So it was in early. It was expected 18th of this month, so we got it 2 weeks early. So ready to roll with it.
Thanks, Scott.
You're welcome.
Any questions for Scott? We've got a new department head. Michelle is kind of overseeing our home incarceration program. And Michelle, would you like to come up and tell us a little bit about, I think you've got it kicked off and getting started. I know Mark might have to leave. He's been working with it, and along with the sheriff's office.
Yeah, we kicked it off on Friday. We put 2 females on it. Actually, it's pretty good that we just put 2 on there. We had to work out some kinks and bugs, and obviously with every new position you have, you're going to have some bumps in the road because, nobody has done this before. Questions to be asked. Prior to court starting today, I had 1 more to hook up. Since court's been going on, I have 4 more to hook up. There's a lot of paperwork involved in this. We had one yesterday who went on the monitor, took 3 steps out the door and got revoked. So he didn't make it off jail property. It's going to be an interesting thing. I will tell you that this definitely is going to be one position where when you come into work, you're going to be staying late and you're going to be hustling all day long to get the paperwork and the approvals and so forth done. But it looks like it's going to be a good system. It's going to work out. It's just getting the flow going. That's the main thing.
Well, I think, and we talked about this when we initiated it, is getting it off the ground, letting you get your feet wet, know where, you're doing what you need to do, and then when it gets to the point where you need some part-time help, then you can come back to the court and kind of show us the justification for it and try to get you some help when it gets to that point.
We're already at that point. And I'm going to explain to you why. For one, there's vacations, there's sick time, there's holidays. You're going to have somebody trained that knows what they're doing. The second thing is, by the time I'm going to a court and getting a list of the people that need to go on, and by the time I get to the jail to get the information, then I've got to track down the judges who signed the order saying they could leave, because depending on what judge it is, that has to be the one who signs it. Then I've got to find the time to put the monitors on, do their zones, and do home checks. I have run 2 days nonstop. It's a very busy job. Actually even thinking about maybe see if we can get an intern in to fill into some of these court times where they can go and sit in on court and they can make a list and bring it to me of the people that were recommended for the monitors. That will at least eliminate some of the pressure right there. Because Madison County has a lot of courts. I mean, here in Berea, I've never seen so many courts in one county before. It's an everyday thing, and it's quite time consuming.
Couldn't we work with the bailiffs and?
They don't have time, Greg. We've looked, but I think the internship, I mean, that could be a really good thing. And then part-time, but I agree, you need to get one or even maybe two trained that can handle this.
Well, and our goal, this court's goal was 50 if we could get them, so we can help Doug out. So
I thought we decided up front that one couldn't do it.
Well, I will tell you this, and I talked to Doug about it yesterday. I do know that a list has been requested from the jail on anybody in there on child support. And I was also told yesterday another list has been requested for anybody on 1 year sentence on petty theft issues, where they can get out and start working and paying these checks off and paying these theft issues off. So those people will be on a monitor for 1 year. So I suspect that child support list is going to be a little big.
Michelle, have you got somebody, internship? Have you talked to anybody that you might get them involved, one or two people involved in this?
We have one intern right now. I know quite a few people at Eastern Kentucky University in the law enforcement program. So I thought maybe I would just issue a letter to them that if they have anybody interested who would like to do an internship with us, we would greatly appreciate the help. And I know they get credit for it as far as their graduation degree goes and whatever they're in. And like I said, it's free help. It would help us tremendously. They would get full effects of learning the law enforcement side of it, how the ankle monitor system works, and I just see it's nothing but a win-win situation for all of us.
Judge, that usually comes on recommendation to the college there as well.
Okay. Good deal.
Anything else?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would ask, and I'm sure you will, Michelle, like every court meeting, I know you're busy and hopefully get some interns that you can get loose, but we'd love to just get us just a report every couple of weeks and tell us how it's going and that. And then we'll look, even with the interns, you might need somebody that, you're going to want to take off, or you might get sick, and you're going to have somebody that you're trained that really works for the county that would oversee that. Thank you very much.
And on the intern program now, they have to be
supervised.
Well, there again, they have to be.
Yeah, they can't hook up monitors. And
They gotta be certified.
Deputy, they have to be pump certified and all that, so that's.
Well, I'm sure the sheriff's department will work it out.
Okay. Any other department heads? Anybody? If not, magistrates, Greg?
Just everything's running pretty good. And, appreciate getting a couple old houses tore down that needed tore down there. That's about it.
Roger?
Well, too much, Judge, can't talk too much, but the state is pretty much getting ready to do their part on the new ferry boat. They've put it out for bid. They had already got a appraisal, which come in a huge amount higher than what ours was at it. But we told them if it comes in that high, we won't even be building it. But George Dean, co-chair, he's talked to a couple of builders on the coast that are in line with us. So, but the problem there is state regulations, as you well know, with funding, labor prices have to be set, and we can get it built a lot cheaper labor prices than what it's required that it be built at. So that's the paperwork and the red tape that you just have to go through. But we're still got plans of getting it if we can.
Good deal. Bill Ray?
Nothing today, Judge.
All right. Judge, I look forward to the meeting on June the 25th with the city of Richmond and Berea, at Berea, about our 911. And Carl, I'm sure you're going to have a good report, and I'm really looking forward to June 20. Says Monday. Okay, I'm sorry, July 9th. You just need to confirm that by then, Carl. But we don't want you to be late because Well, the agenda, and of course, it's open discussion, but I'm looking forward to hearing what you have learned for the court about what we will do when, the government's gone out here and we need some more money. But other than that, Judge, I'm just glad to be here.
I'm glad to have him. What I'm going to try to do, because we alternate sponsoring or hosting these meetings, is Richmond's had their second one, Bree will do this one, and then I'm going to try to set up the tour with all three governments for the next one, and we'll be a host for it. Comments from the audience, anybody? Mr. King, come on up.
I'd like to thank the court for allowing me a few minutes of their time. My name is Everett King, and I'm the new elected post commander for the American Legion Post 12. I'm here today to kind of inform the public on what we do for Madison County. We are a veterans organization. Approximately, we got 120 members in the American Legion, but we do consist of the Legion Riders, the Sons of the American Legion, and the Legion Auxiliary. Each one's got their 501c nonprofit organization numbers. We service nearly 6,000 veterans and their families from Madison County. Some of the services we provide is DAV rep to help file claims for the Veterans Administration. We have a honor guard to perform funerals, and we do motorcycle escorts for funerals. We also provide other community service such as Boys and Girls States for the community. We offer scholarship opportunities with our oratorical program and nursing program. We sponsor a youth sports team, provide flag etiquette training in our schools, and we work with schools and other organizations for different programs such as the Backpack for Kids program that Caldwell School had this past year. We meet the second Thursday of every month at 6 p.m. at the Old Armory on 2nd Street. We offer anybody like to come out and listen to us or see what we're about, they're more than welcome. If you have any questions about the organization or want to know more, we have two websites, the American Legion post12.org and American Legion Riders richmondkentucky.com. We have emails available there that you can email us any questions you can have. We'd also like to take this our opportunity to thank Judge Clark for his efforts and hard work in working in cooperation with the Bluegrass Army Depot through a land grant that Congress gave us to establish a Veterans Center for Madison County. The land grant required that the veterans of Madison County had proper funds and stuff to build this building. Thanks to People's Bank of Madison County and the Kentucky Veterans Trust Fund Committee, I just got a $40,000 grant from. We now meet those criteria. So,
Everett, I'll bring everybody up to date a little bit. I'm talking with Trey Richardson, who's the attorney for the depot now. And we're trying to expedite this. It was in the language when we got the 3 acres for the old commanders. So the last time I talked to Trey last week was the Corps of Engineers involved, and I just, oh no. But what we're trying to do is get around them, meet all the federal criteria, but they're giving the Army a number like 40,000 just to do the surveying and the background stuff, the title searches and things like that. Yes. So I think I was in line. I think the whole court would agree with me. I told him to get with the Corps and maybe set up a meeting where they could let us as an in-kind service to you all as veterans in acquiring that land, because you all have done so much to get together the money for the building and the infrastructure, the water and stuff, that we could be responsible for that, and we could do it for probably a fifth of what the Corps is proposing. Because if you all have to come up with $40,000, to do just the legwork, even before you get a deed signed, then you're not going to have the money to do what you all want to do out there. So I think he's working on it and keeping in contact with me. So we're going to try to set up a meeting and see exactly what they want, but it would be a certified licensed appraiser that was certified by them, and just that kind of stuff as far as an attorney to do the back, the title searches and stuff. But I think everybody's online. We've got letters. You've got a letter, and I got to say, Everett's been instrumental in for several years getting this started. First looked, initially when we did this, it was the 10 acres out in front of the depot. And of course, the new reserve center went in there, and they've been talking and decided that the property would be ideal between the fairgrounds and US 52. And that way they don't really have to infringe on the depot land. Exactly. And it's kind of open territory, but it is owned by the federal government. And you still have
acres is that, Joe?
Well, we're asking for 10, but there's probably about 20 acres out there.
I think there's approximately 21 acres.
Yeah, there's around 20 acres. So we're gonna
Been sitting there for years, ain't it?
yeah, try to look and see if we're gonna get this, if we can go on and get, secure all of it. I mean, it's free as long as we do all the work. But one contingency on it is that it has to be a veterans center. And of course, the land will have to come to the court. We'll be responsible for it, and we'll have to depend on the veterans. And it's got a right of, I guess, refusion, where if it ever ceases to be a veterans center and the veterans ever go away and don't use it, then it would come, if they wanted it, back to the federal government. But the land will be deeded to Madison County, and then we will be responsible for working with the veterans. But they'll be responsible for getting all their, their utilities in, their building, and all that stuff. So it could be and right there at the fairgrounds too, so it could be a really good, good project for a whole lot of people.
And with the 6,000 veterans in Madison County, we can extend our services, provide more. We'll also be able to do more within the community with more opportunities for grants and for the school children, do more inside of our school systems, along with the possibly helping out our community a lot more.
Everett, we appreciate all your efforts, because I know you've been just adamantly working on this forever and ever and ever. So I think we're a little bit probably closer than we've ever been right now.
That sounds good to us.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I don't think so, because we've already called for department heads. Motion to pay the claims and approve the transfer.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Berger?
Yes.
Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Yes. Good meeting. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.